Hello, welcome to another episode of Engineering Our Future podcast. I'm Nicolai here with Luis again. Excited to record another episode with you.
I'm excited. I'm excited. It's been a good month for me. I guess we're recording kind of early June, but May was a busy month for me. A lot of work stuff going on and trying to figure out what to do with this podcast and some things kind of going on as well. So I'm excited to dive into the summer and kind of get in back into more recordings. I think we both kind of took a little bit of a break because of work and other things happening. But yeah, I'm excited to be here again.
Nice. And you're right around your 9 month mark being at this large firm, right?
Yeah. I just got a reminder, yeah, like a week or two ago, which made me think about just kind of what we're talking about here today. And yeah, it's been a lot. It's been very different, kind of coming from a smaller firm to a larger firm. So I'm excited to dive into this topic and maybe talk about some of the things that maybe a lot of people don't realize coming into maybe a larger firm or a little hesitant when they are maybe approached by a large firm, recruiter or something. So I'm excited to dive into this topic.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I know that we've talked about differences between a small firm versus large firm before, but I just think it's more impactful that we're able just to kind of share your actual personal experience as you've made this transition. I had the opportunity to make this transition 2.5 years ago. So even though my heart still kind of lies with the small firms, and I just think, they have so many great positives about them. I do feel like I'm kind of more of a big firm person now, if that makes sense. So I guess just to kind of start our episode, and if we have some time, I know we're going to talk about like additional pivot opportunities, if there's time. But I guess just what's in the last, 6 months or so since we probably recorded that episode, what new things have come to light that maybe a large firm is providing or allowing or opportunities? Like what new things have you discovered?
Yeah, and I think the main thing for me, kind of coming into this role, was maybe a little bit of the hesitation of like, I mean, large firm. You think of these long processes to or procedures to design anything on approvals and all of these things that maybe at a smaller firm could be a little faster. Um, there is more maybe like structure, I'll say, in terms of like you have 30% submittals, 60, 90, and then 100. But I've kind of enjoyed that just in a sense that you don't have to take everything to 100% because that last stretch it's hard. It's hard to take a design from let's say 60 to 90%. And I feel like in these smaller firms, you're basically going almost from 0 to 100. And I think when you do that, you again, it may be a little easier to just kind of start and then finish. But when you have these little milestones in between, you have the opportunity to like think about design, like what am I missing? Like do these little things that maybe at the same time you're not thinking when you're going from 0 to 100. And also, I don't know if it's kind of the stage of my career. I'm 7, 8 years out of school, if I remember correctly. But I feel like I have a lot more freedom to just kind of approach these projects on kind of my own way of doing things and maybe a little bit of yeah, just kind of how again, I'm still learning a lot of these things. These things are still new, just kind of the process of like how we design a bridge and again, we have some standards or whatnot, but there's a lot of flexibility in terms of like going through the project. I feel like I have more freedom to just do it maybe the way I would like to do it, makes sense to me and whatnot. Smaller firms, the ones I had, there was some of that, but there was a lot more rigidity on the process of getting a project from start to end. I think I had to follow more kind of a straight line, and it was hard to deviate from that. So that's kind of the main thing I've noticed. And again, I was surprised, like I was telling you, how maybe a little more freedom I've had in terms of just again going through a project and like getting from beginning to end. And I feel more free right now that I used to before, which has been just amazing.
I think that is cool. I want to make a quick note, and hopefully we'll remember this for the future episode. But I think your toolbox has expanded. I think that's kind of a nice summary of, you're going to continue to learn new things. I mean, I learn new things all the time still, just because as you continue to grow up, there's more things to learn. It's like there's an endless number of things to learn. But I think your toolbox has gotten to a point where now you are skilled with those tools. You can do more things. People are seeing what you're skilled at, and they're coming to you to help kind of complete their teams or complete their projects with the skill sets that you have. So I think that that's what I'm picking up on what you're saying, which is I think is really, really cool. It's a great place to be. It's a fun place to be. Um,
I just feeling
so
useful
yeah,
in general. I think just again, I've started to develop kind of my own spreadsheet for designing different things, which is it's a lot of fun. I mean, as an engineer, that's kind of one of the fun things about doing engineering is actually doing the work and getting into um, the nitty gritty sometimes of like designing this and like making sure I'm doing it in a way that is flexible and I can reuse it and all these things that maybe in the past there was some of it, but I wasn't as intentional of doing, and maybe that was just kind of on me and just making sure I wasn't make sure I was creating those spreadsheets that could be reused in the future.
yeah. What about people? You have, well, I found or I felt that I had a lot more access to way more people when I came over to the large firm. So people wise, what's your experience there?
I think the same. I think just being able to, if I have a question on something that I don't know, I just kind of reach out to my manager and they're like, oh, yeah, you should talk to this person. They know a lot about this. Or, yeah, you should talk about this other person. They know a lot about that. So being able to communicate with people that, again, when you have a larger firm, you have more access to these kind of type of like maybe people that know more about certain areas. But at the same time, I think working with other disciplines, I think we touched about this in the past, but just working with other disciplines at the same time and just working in a project kind of mostly in house. I'm talking with the roadway team, to the drainage team, to all of these other teams that are involved in the project that maybe I didn't have access before because we were kind of siloing just the structural part has just expanded my knowledge in terms of like bridge comes into the big picture of a project and some of the things I need to be thinking about when I'm designing the bridge, like make sure there's enough drainage so the water doesn't get stuck in the joints and like all these things that maybe uh, are are a little obvious once you start looking at the big picture of a project. I didn't really have that too much just because of nature of just working in kind of in a silo in terms of the engineering design. So that's been pretty cool.
Okay. What about resources? And I have a follow-up question already lined up for you here, and I didn't prep you for it, but resource-wise, how is the difference there?
Same thing. Just kind of again, there's a lot of examples. Again, larger firms gonna have a lot more projects, so you have a lot more of go bys and designs that you kind of reusing and whatnot. So just in terms of technical resources, I mean, we have access to pretty much every code that I could need or want to have. That's great, especially if you're designing something that maybe is not specifically structural. Then you can have access to those codes. Um, like I think I said this at the beginning, but I was a little surprised of in terms of kind of actual design like procedures, and I think this kind of goes back to maybe a little more flexibility in terms of we didn't really have like a set of spreadsheets. Like when you're designing a girder, use this spreadsheet. When you're designing an abutment, use this spreadsheet. So I was a little surprised about that. I figured there was some standards to like make sure everyone was being efficient. But at the same time, as I start to get into maybe more design, again, there's a ton of different ways to design something. When you are developing those spreadsheets and kind of diving into the nitty-gritty, you understand more of what you're doing. So now, to me, that it makes sense that there's not something maybe like centralized. I still kind of want to put together maybe a set of like example calculations that people, especially interns or like new engineers, can see and follow and whatnot when they're developing their own stuff. But that was one of the things that was surprised at the beginning, but kind of have slowly changed my mind into it's just kind of part of the process. I have developed now my own
Okay.
spreadsheet that I can use again. And obviously, I'm going to be able to do these other things a lot faster and maybe a little more efficient than 9 months ago when I started. So that's something that's been a little surprising in terms of like the technical resources and whatnot. Again, people, we got a lot of people that you can reach out to and be able to, especially even remote, again, work in different teams and different areas. So that's been great.
What about kind of the soft skill training resources? You're co-leading a pretty cool group now, and you're having a pretty great impact there. And I guess you want to kind of expand on that a little bit, and maybe kind of the benefit that you might be able to get out of this by volunteering.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the things that maybe smaller firms struggle more, just again not having the resources to have people working on these maybe initiatives. And we have at Jacob, we have different kind of communities for different areas. Let's say I don't remember all of them right now, but like Ace, there's like Prism, Enlace, which
Oh,
is
all of
for
our networks,
yeah,
yes.
networks. That's what technically they're called. But then you have these kind of little communities that you can tap into at the same time. So I'm part of the Enlace one, just which is the Hispanics, and just kind of, again, I'm not super active right now, but just kind of following the chat and see how people are communicating and whatnot. Uh, but with this training, I was kind of just literally was like first or second week I was working at Jacobs. One of the engineers in our team was like, "Yeah, you want to do this?" I was like, "I'll think about it. I mean, let me give me a few months to just kind of get my feet under me and kind of understand kind of what I'm doing over here." But it's a great opportunity, like you said, just finding. I've been able to just find more people that way, just reaching out to people like, "Do you want to give a presentation? What kind of projects are going on?" So you kind of start seeing, especially me being remote, I'm not at the office and hearing like, oh, I'm working on this project, I'm working on that other project. You start asking around like what projects are going on, which is more interesting that you can give a presentation. You start talking to people. So slowly that network has kind of expanded in a sense. And again, anything that relates to soft skills, I think it's always good, and I'm a big proponent of that. So we're just most of the topics have been like projects, but every now and then I want to throw into a little bit of, again, like soft skills and maybe skills that people can use as they kind of progress in their careers and whatnot. So yeah, a lot of the soft skills. Again, Jacobs have a bunch of trainings and whatnot. Again, big companies tend to have a lot more resources in different areas, and if they don't, like, they're able to tap into other maybe outside resources a lot easier than maybe a smaller firm could.
Yeah, so I do want to just do a quick plug back for the small firms here is, you know, when I was with smaller firms, we didn't maybe have so many internal networks or internal, groups that of training sort of upskilling, professional development sort of meetings, but they were very, at least the ones that I worked at, they were very encouraging of me to go to ASCE or WTS or ACEC meetings, so it may not be internal, but a lot of them, most of them are going to be very encouraging to go find those things externally, which honestly expanded my network pretty great,
Mhm.
so there was a huge benefit of that,
Yeah,
but
and
it is nice to
just to
be internal too.
yeah, and to add to that, I think smaller firms, especially at least from my experience, I didn't really. I mean, I asked permission to go to the conference, for example, but it wasn't like I was requesting to go to the conference. That makes sense. It could have been the fact that I was kind of one of the only ones that was very active and wanted to go conferences, which, I mean, at smaller firms, that's a bigger chance that that happens. Right now, obviously, there's a formal process. You have to request it. Your supervisor has to approve it and whatnot. So again, there's pros and cons in different areas. I wouldn't say there's less flexibility right now for me to like go to conference or volunteer and whatnot. But I think the ask was maybe a little easier as a smaller firm at times. Again, just because of if you have large firm and everyone wants to be doing that, it's gonna be harder to make it make sense in terms of like a business perspective. Like you cannot just have all your employees spending 2 to 3 hours every week doing maybe outside work and whatnot. So those are some of the things that maybe smaller firms could have over bigger firms. But again, it's just kind of a preference, and I'll definitely link back to the main episode we did a few months ago, which we dive deeper into kind of those differences and whatnot.
One last question for me is, you've been here, you've kind of seen some of the opportunities that are available to, well, honestly, you've seen maybe some, but there's
Mhm.
technically like endless opportunities that you can kind of pivot to. Uh, have you kind of picked up on any in particular? Do you see anything? I know we could probably do a whole episode on kind of career pivots, but like as you're progressing in your career, and honestly, in that 7, 8 year mark is the perfect
Mhm.
time where people start to kind of think about this pivot. What are you kind of seeing? What's kind of exciting you? Is there anything there?
Yeah, and I think that's something that I mean I kind of knew in the back of my mind in terms of just again a larger firm, you have more opportunities, more kind of career paths on what you want to do, and maybe you have a little more experience than I do in terms of like at a larger firm, just being a little more experienced in that, but there is so many career paths kind of as you look forward and as you look like up the chain in terms of what you could do again fully technical. I think we talked about this before, but fully technical project management, but you can also just completely pivot careers and still be within like the same company just because it's so large. There's so many opportunities, and a lot of times these bigger firms also have the resources to, let's say, I don't remember which firm exactly, it may have been Jacobs or someone else, some other firm. Um, there was someone that wanted to start a real estate branch, if you will, of the company, and they kind of create a business plan, got everything just kind of organized and made it make sense to pitch it, and they eventually opened that branch of like real estate, which I think is super cool. Something that maybe in a smaller firm would be really really hard to do, but when you have these larger firms, you have the resources, you have the opportunities to really expand in terms of what you want to be doing. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be engineering from day one to your last day. There's different ways that you can weave into different interests, if you will, at times. So I think that's something that I kind of knew, but just experiencing it from the inside feels nice to just have the options. Like you don't need to completely move companies to find a new role. I get emails I think weekly or monthly, um, that says we have roles open. We're called to interest for this position, like things like that. That I think is just cool to see and just kind of have the opportunity to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I worked at a medium-sized firm for about a year on loan. They loaned my small firm loaned me out to this medium-sized firm, and there was somebody there who was kind of starting an energy sector. All the solar panel farms and all these different things. And in that year that I was there, I mean, she had already kind of established certain things, and that was not even her like specialty. I think she might have been structures to begin with, or grading and drainage to begin with. Uh, but within that year, she had grown a team, she had grown her clients. It was just so cool to kind of see that pivot. So yeah, opportunities are endless. I got the pleasure of going to kind of a upcoming leaders class recently, and I was able to share a little bit about my story. I was on a panel, and we were talking about, how did I get here? What are some of the lessons I learned along the way? So I think we could probably expand on career pivots in another episode. But yeah, I think this was really cool. It's really cool to kind of see your experience as you are here longer, and
Mhm.
your experience in this large firm. And it's exciting to kind of see where you go, and exciting to see some of the projects that you're doing and all the volunteer things that you're jumping into, which honestly, you can't even put a number on how much that's going to benefit you. That is
Yeah.
just such a cool thing. Way to go on that. Do you have any final thoughts before we close the episode?
No, I think, like you said, we'll expand this a little bit in a future episode. There's a lot to talk about. It's kind of in terms of career pivots within a large company. We'll do a little expansion on that aspect. But I think for the listener, especially if you were in a smaller firm, afraid of working in a larger firm, or vice versa, just kind of keep an open mind. I think we preach that a lot here at the podcast, and just I think you and I are try to be open minded in terms of like just give it a chance, just talk to someone, see what the experiences are, and yeah, just kind of being maybe a little more proactive in terms of what you want to be doing, especially if you're not happy at the job. Like look at the different options that could change the way you see your job and whatnot. So yeah, I've been enjoying my time, and it's been, I'll say, a pleasantly surprised good experience, especially starting remote. Well, larger firm that maybe I had a little hesitation at the beginning, and just all things considered, I think it's been a great change for me, and I'm just excited to kind of continue talking about it and exploring kind of some of those topics. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, you're gonna love the content we have over our newsletter. Every issue comes packed with information about the episode that we recorded, giving you detailed action items, as well as just reflection on some of the things that you could apply in your career, in your life. And I always enjoy sitting down on a Sunday, Saturday sometimes, and writing down each newsletter. Comes packed with a lot of information, a lot of links, a lot of great lessons and knowledge that we share both in the podcast, but I'll try to go a little deeper into that connection. So if you are interested in that at all, go to luisfelipeduque.com/newsletter. All the information is there. I'm excited for the podcast and where it's going. So I want you to know about that resource as well. Nicolai and I put a lot of effort in the podcast, and we're enjoying the conversations. And as well, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, go to the link in the description below, or luisfelipeduque.com/contact, and let's connect. We're happy to provide you with all the information you need, and always excited to have that conversation as well. Thank you, Jack Winters, for the music. And as always, let's continue engineering our future.